Welcome to the Someone Gets Me podcast, where you'll hear stories of inspiration and hope realized. Hosted by Dianne Allen, intuitive empowerment mentor who specializes in working with people who want to be freed from being stuck in life. You will hear personal stories and professional insights, along with tips on how to conquer overthinking, procrastination, and more. Here's Dianne.
Hey friends, it's Dianne here, and I have a great interview for you today. And this woman is in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I love it there. And I'm so excited to have Dr. Kate Dow with us today. She is going to share some amazing things with you, and she has an amazing book coming out that is right up your alley. Wait till you hear about it. You're going to love it. For over 2 decades, that's over 20 years, Kate has been helping successful people in all kinds of development ways. I know her very well, and she was a psychologist, and now she's a business coach, and she just loves helping women who are spiritual and awakening and trying to make the world a better place in a big global way, not just little tiny things. Her mission is so huge. Her presence on Facebook inspires me. Every time I open it, I see something really cool just a little while ago, and I'm like, oh, it's Kate again. I love it. Her mission is all about helping people be the leaders that they truly are from the inside out, so that all of us can stand better, stronger, more authentic in a way that's sustainable and amazing. I love talking to Kate, and you're going to love listening to our conversation. And I'm sure you're going to want to contact her after this interview so that you can just, have such a great interaction with her, whether it's on social media or a phone call or working with her, because she's got such a great presence. So welcome to the show, Kate.
Thank you, Dianne. I'm really excited to be here.
This is such a good time in history, I guess, where it's exciting and thrilling and amazing and scary and terrifying and uncertain and all of those things. And I think it's so refreshing that you work with people from a spiritual perspective and a higher calling perspective, especially in the business world. So my first question might take a little while to answer, but I'm kind of curious about what led you this direction, because you were a psychologist and you worked for people in one way for so long, and now you're doing all these new things in the last several years. And so can you share with us a little bit about that journey, like your personal journey, how you got here?
Sure. It feels to me all the same, even though it might look different on the outside. I've been on my own journey to find my own authentic self and come through a lot of my own personal challenges with anxiety, lots of fears, lots of depression, lots of challenges, just being a very sensitive person in an insensitive world, like we've talked about. And that's been a long, big journey for me. So my work ended up being just a reflection of that, of how I could help women, especially, do that same journey, right? Find their connection with themselves, be able to know how to take care of themselves at a higher level so that they can begin to cultivate those gifts and start to get out in the world and share them. So for me, it's kind of been a natural progression.
Oh, that's great. Like this organic thing. You didn't wake up one day and go, oh, I think I'm going to go help entrepreneurs. That's so much more powerful to have it coming from the inside out. That's amazing.
Yeah, because for me, as I've worked with women over 30 years, seeing how that stage of us healing and growing and self-empowering is the same stage and as entrepreneurs. And I really see the entrepreneurial business path as a spiritual path. Like, you don't just choose it because it looks fun. You choose it because it's going to work you, it's going to grow you, it's going to push you to this place of unveiling really like your greatest version of yourself. And that's been my experience for myself. And so that's just, again, it just feels like it's been a really beautiful, organic unfolding.
Oh, that's amazing. I wrote a blog, I think it was last year, and I titled it that your business cannot not outgrow your own development.
Yes.
And I so agree with what you just said, obviously. And it's so true. I see people, entrepreneurs, but others, in the business world, trying to get ahead of where they are in their own development and their own awareness and their own consciousness. And it's a struggle because I don't know that that's possible. You have to back up and fill in the hole, so to speak. I have a question for you about procrastination. There's like a lot of different ways people procrastinate in the world. And I'm sure you've worked with people that have procrastinated, and probably you've even procrastinated yourself too, because you're bright and you're sensitive, and bright and sensitive people often struggle with procrastination because of the fears, that go with that. So could you share maybe some tips or some ideas you have about procrastination, and maybe some things that could help somebody listening who might, be wondering, what could I do to procrastinate less, or maybe work through it in a way that is more empowering?
Yes. Well, it's interesting because as you were asking me the question, I was reflecting on my book and how I speak about how rather than resisting our fears, right? And our worries and anxieties, we move towards them, we embrace them, we get curious about them. And so for me, that would be the same work with procrastination, is to lean towards it, to be willing to really hear what is that need that I have inside me that I'm not meeting that would make this flow. What is that part of me calling for that I'm ignoring? Now, sometimes that can be that we have perfectionistic thoughts that are getting in the way, but usually there's, to me, other things going on that we're kind of putting up the cart before the horse in some way. And there's some steps to take that can help us be more connected with ourselves. I talk about embodiment a lot, because to me that's a missing link for many of us, including myself. It's been a lot of work around how do I really get present with what's going on, and not just from a thinking place. So procrastination, I find, often has some hidden layers underneath. So the tip is to work with getting more present and quiet and curious from a non-judgmental place, getting as embodied as you can by using your breath, perhaps meditating, or even just stretching calmly and quietly, and sitting with that little part of you that's resisting and procrastinating, and being accepting of it first, right? Accepting of it, and then allowing it to maybe communicate what it's needing in order to help you move forward. So it's a very internal place of bringing our attention and our awareness and our love to the situation that allows us to shift those kinds of external challenges around moving forward with a project, I find.
Yes, I think the curiosity and the love are really important parts of it. I see people, and I've had that trouble before when I procrastinated, kind of beating myself up and getting frustrated and then getting to the love. It's a nice piece of work there, to really love ourselves and be curious about it instead of mean and judgmental and that kind of thing, because that just makes the situation worse, right?
It does. And sometimes, if you don't have the time or energy or interest to go deep, it can be something simple like, let me go do something totally different than what I'm supposed to be doing on this task. Like, let me go prune a bush, or go clean my sock drawer. And that can shift our energy and open us up in surprising ways, just because it's off our radar. And it just moves that part of us that gets stagnant around everything needing to be perfect and aligned.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing. That's great. That's a great tip. And I think it's a great awareness. Would you explain what embodiment is for those people who may not really understand exactly what you're referring to?
When I use the word embodiment, I believe it's a consciousness that's coming more and more out into mainstream. It's a way that we used to live thousands of years ago, where we were present and aware from a body perspective. We didn't just treat our bodies as this accessory that gets us to the market and back. And we've lost touch with the huge resources of awareness that we have, that and wisdom and guidance and strength and all kinds of goodies that we all have within our body awareness, simply because we live in more of a culture and a consumer concept that pulls us outside of ourselves, right? It just keeps pulling us outside visually and with technology. And so most of us, I would say a large percentage of the planet, lives disembodied unless we start to find ways that help us be more conscious in our bodies. And So there's many levels of it, but at a basic level, that's what I'm talking about. Learning to become more aware of your energy and how you use it, learning to connect with your own sort of spiritual sexual energy is another level of consciousness of Tantra, which is another kind of embodiment. But at a basic level, it means, how do I recognize that I'm not just a head walking around in my day? And me thinking my way through my life is one way, but it's a very limited way. And when we begin to just be more present, maybe with our breath, maybe with, like I've said, stretching or meditation, where we're just paying attention to our breath and body, we start to feel a sense of nourishment from that, and a place of peace that we can't find so much in our thinking mind at all. And so embodiment is a big piece of the self-mastery work that I do with clients, because that to me is a huge missing link, right, for most of us.
Yes, and I agree 100%. And when I'm listening to you, it seems like, you hear that whole mind body connection, and what you just described is like the most eloquent way of really saying, to me, I was hearing body mind connection. We're not a little head walking around on a stick, and it's more than just being aware that we have a body. It's being like in it and living and breathing and being our body and being our mind, and them all coming together. And that gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, the whole mind, body, spirit thing has just always been with me since I was really
Mm.
young. And it's part of the reason I didn't end up becoming a Western doctor, was because I experienced how split off that was. So I went the psychology route, which was fabulous. And I brought that mind, body, spirit premise into my work with people more and more, as I realized this is such a huge need. And of course, my own personal development and healing too, because it's always my journey that leads me to the place of holding space for others.
Oh, that's perfect. And I didn't know we had that in common. I was heading into Western medicine and said, they're missing something here, and went into psychology myself.
That's great.
And then now I'm doing all these other wild things related, but not exactly that, because of my own journey. So there we go. Another synchronicity, if you will. How perfect is that? I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Okay, so another issue that 100% of the people who answered the poll have said is something of concern with them. So I do ask a lot of people for tips on these things, because I think that the answer is just as varied as the questions. And that is about overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
And, the brain running rampant, maybe even keeping people up at night, or like the analysis paralysis kind of overthinking, where somebody's thinking so much that they can't even get out of their own way, and they want to get out of their own way. And I'm certain that you've dealt with this. And so again, I'm wondering if, you have some inspiration or some ideas, or a way to maybe think about it a little bit differently, so that a solution can maybe have, and come into awareness for somebody.
Yes. Well, overthinking, just from all the work that I've really been doing around embodiment, is a reflection of us not being embodied, basically. So whenever I'm working with people who get stuck in their head, I immediately want to bring them into their breath and their awareness of their body, and bring more somatic focus, so that they start paying attention to, what else is being needed. Again, overthinkers tend to get stuck just in those cycles. Like you're saying, they wake up, they're not sleeping, they're constantly just trying to will their way through the day, through the thought process. And what I teach with the self-mastery is that, the mind is only as helpful as it is if it's clear and it's reflecting your soul. So it can't do that when it's full of all of these overthinking attachments and expectations and judgments. So there's ways to start working with clearing the judging mind, but the fastest way to do that is to drop in the body. So I use that somatic embodiment work to help people then slow down. And as soon as we slow down, we start to integrate and think differently. We really can become more connected to what I call the witness mind, which is a non-thinking mind. It's an awareness mind that helps us get more connected with that intuition. And that intuition is what's powerfully guiding us forward far better than our thinking mind. So it's opening up how we become conscious that we're overthinking, right? How do I know I'm overthinking? Well, because it's starting to affect my sleep. I'm more anxious. I'm more agitated. Okay, so how do I stop right now? Take 3 deep belly breaths, feel my feet on the ground, and bring myself into my heart. Maybe those 3 steps help us stop and be curious. Again, the curiosity, non-judgment of what's going on? Why am I spinning out? This isn't helpful for me. Let me just be present and breathe and get into my heart. And then perhaps I can listen to that other wise mind part of me that can guide me forward on this project that is from a very different place than I'm forcing a solution, I'm overthinking, I'm stuck in my mind.
Yes, I think it's so true, because when people get stuck in that overthinking, that, there's that idea of I have to force it. And the more we try to force anything that has an organic spiritual connection, the more it doesn't work. And I like the imagery, because I always talk about 3 deep breaths and kind of coming into our body. But I loved when you said, and come into your heart. I loved that, because when you can get in your heart, then that's like that love place, And I love that. I love how you said that. That was great.
Well, in the heart,
Yeah.
we know more and more it's like our most powerful, smart, intelligent brain. Like it
Yes.
has, 100 times more impact, awareness, and guidance and wisdom than our thinking mind. So
Right.
really
Yeah.
important part to bring forward with us into our business.
Yes, into our business, our lives, our relationships. And it's like kind of funny, because the generations before us that were so stuck on brain, 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 brain are now being shown that the wisest understanding of heart, heart, heart with brain helping, that was ancient, is really the way that we were designed. And so it's no surprise to me that in a lot of ways, people like you who are educated and a woman and having your own journey are helping shine the light and helping other people really come into the understanding that this isn't really new. It's resurrecting what's ancient and always has been there. And we're reconnecting that which was disconnected. And that's a mighty work. That's a powerful work that you're doing, not only in you, but in everybody that you touch, and I just think it's beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciated you sort of speaking to that historical piece, because I agree that, that was here thousands of years ago. And we are so desperately, all of us, needing to connect to that. And on a certain level, I call that the sacred feminine. Not that it's gender, but it's just energetically us connecting with that feminine access wisdom that all of us on the planet are needing. And that is part of this idea of being more connected, mind, body, spirit, more connected with our energy, more connected with that field of awareness that goes beyond the mental, limitations of the thinking mind.
Right. Absolutely. I have one more interesting question about
Okay.
change and tension and anxiety. And following this question, I would like you to share a little bit also about your book that's coming out. And this question has kind of popped in my head earlier when I was thinking about wanting to read your book and wishing it was already out now and not wanting to have to wait. But actually, this podcast will air right about as it's launching. So that'll be perfect. I have done a lot of work, as you know, with gifted people, and we talk a lot about positive disintegration as a part of our personality development, and how Dabrowski always put forward that it takes tension and anxiety to grow a personality, that if there was no life tension and no life anxieties, the personality does not develop in a healthy way. It never actuates. And so I know that you have a lot of specialty in anxiety and fear and tension and those kinds of things. And so my question, or I guess kind of my thoughts I'd like to hear you share about, is like, there's the anxiety that helps us develop and move forward, and we, can disintegrate old things and integrate new things. And then there's that anxiety that can get in the way or cripple people. I think it's like a qualitative difference or something. And I know that you deal with that a lot. And I would really like you to share a little bit about how people can tell the difference. I'm running into a lot of people who are having like the typical tension and anxiety of just growing their life. and they're calling it anxiety in a pathology sense when it's not necessarily pathology. And so I find myself teaching that a lot. And I thought maybe, you might have some experience having maybe run into the same kind of thing, or maybe you could speak to that whole idea a bit.
Oh, I love that. That's a great question. There's a couple different aspects I guess I want to speak to. One is I totally agree that as human beings, we grow because we meet that tension, we meet that struggle. And so it inspires us to grow and move out of where we are, right? So I see how there's that positive aspect. From the view of the self-mastery work, and in my book, what I talk about is that anxiety always has a message for us. And when we recognize that we can learn to go in and connect to it and let it be a guide for us around what we might want to do to be more self-caring or self-empowered, or just how we live our life in our day-to-day existence. The idea that we can't sometimes know when it's become a negative anxiety. I guess I would say that my view of that is that if we were more conscious of our awareness of ourselves and our anxieties and fears, and we recognized how they can fuel us forward, then that's the positive anxiety. When we begin to feel impeded, minimized, disconnected from ourselves with our anxiety, I think that's when we've lost touch with being the captain of our own ship, right? We've allowed this fear, which I experienced many times and throughout my life in different situations, completely paralyzing in the sense that I felt powerless. I felt disconnected from my own sense of self and my own capacity to feel worthy of my life being better or different in some situation. And I think that's when it can feel crippling, right? It can feel that you are no longer the master of your life. And that, I would guess is the place where you're kind of walking that fine line of if I can be in relationship to my anxiety and fear, where I know it's an aspect of me guiding me versus it's running me and it's ruining my life. That's that step from what I call sort of being stuck in the drama triangle, right? And being able to move perspective and awareness and consciousness to this idea of empowerment, choices. I can make new decisions about how I relate with my anxiety so that it can be my fuel instead of my jail cell.
Right, exactly. I can, there's a lot of energy in anxiety and fear, and if we can harness that, like fear means to, the function of fear is to get prepared and be ready, and it gives you the energy to get prepared and ready. We don't have to freeze, and we don't have to run, and we don't have to be afraid. We can say, okay, what do I need to do? And that's like, I call it like the booster rocket. Here's the energy you need to get to the next place. It's our body, our system is giving us what we need. And I think our mind sometimes misinterprets and makes it a problem instead of more of, here's all the resources you need. Now let's put them together and go forward.
Right.
Right.
And often it's because we're sort of running from ourselves. We have some awareness that some situation is no longer serving us and we're not wanting to see that. So we create this other place where we're not being able to cope. When we can slow down and really listen and trust and go inside, usually there's that little part of us we've been ignoring that's saying we need to change things up, right? It might mean leaving a relationship. It might mean leaving a job. It might mean completely changing how you're going to take care of your well-being and health that you knew was there, but you've been avoiding. So yeah.
Oh, that's a great point too. That's so true. I mean, so many times, even I've said it. Oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. And then don't. And then you wonder why the anxiety goes up. Well, because you know better and you're ignoring it. Our beings are divine in that sense that our consciousness will always remind us in the most creative ways.
Definitely.
That's why I always say, just listen, heads up, you know? Oh, my word. So, what are some things that you enjoy to do to take care of yourself? Because obviously, you know, and you're leading a lot of people, that takes a lot of effort and work and things like that. And so, what are some things that Kate does to take care of Kate?
Well, Kate's created a life where Kate had to make changes or her, you know, her body was going to fall apart and she was going to die. So I've had a lot of life changes around my health and self-care because I created these fantastic experiences that made me do it, whether I wanted to or not. Or I guess I could have still chosen not to, but I wouldn't be here. So, you know, for 20 years, I've been cleaning up my relationship with food and sugar. I've been a lifelong sugar addict. So figuring out how that added to my anxiety, created inflammation. It made me feel less connected and less empowered. So food has been a big issue. My relationship to my body and practicing, you know, I work out regularly. That's something I've always loved, but bringing in more of the other side of doing yoga and meditation. I love somatic meditation, and that's been really a powerful aid in the last, I'd say, 15 years of me, you know, upping my spiritual practice to a daily commitment, maybe even twice a day when I, you know, make space for that. And getting sleep is a really big one for me. Being a sensitive person, I always resisted that as a younger person and thought, oh, just toughen up, be like everyone else. You know, you can stay up, you can, you know, when I was younger, you know, it was partying and all that. And it just was not a good fit for me. And I had to really get strong and say, if it means I lose friends, then it means I lose friends, right? So again, this health piece of living in alignment with what I need meant letting go of all of that kind of life. Also giving myself permission to do the long needed deep sleep that I need. I need at least 8 hours, if not more. And that means I have to revolve my life in a way that supports that. And I hold on to that and I prioritize it no matter what's happening. You know, I work around that. Having support, I think, is a big part of self-care, right? Having support in all the different ways we can have it. And gosh, we have so many options now. If you're working on your health, you can work with a health coach. If you are working on clearing emotional trauma, you have therapists. If you are wanting support in your business or your life changes, you can have a coach. So having support is a big part of recognizing we're not here to struggle on our own. We're here to open ourselves, to reach out, to allow people in who can be that positive support for us. And that was also a big part of my self-care, because I kind of was that strong, you know, trying to be strong and do everything myself and be superwoman. And that is not the path of, you know, really actualizing yourself. It's connecting with others, connecting with your heart, allowing people in. So those are some ways that I take care of me.
Oh, those are beautiful. And I think, you know, that's a great wisdom that you shared, because you know, you hear that if you're going to be a successful professional woman, you have to be that kind of hard androgynous type being, and culture went through that. Remember the polyester pantsuits and the whole thing, and I don't know why that popped in my head, but now that, you know, people are realizing, you know, as people evolve and our world evolves, that there's something better, and that's that more authentic connection, you know, and you shared about that beautifully. And I was sitting here going, that's so true. It's so true that that's what matters, is that we stay connected that way. So what's your favorite food to eat?
Well, I currently am eating vegetarian. So my favorite food is fresh, you know, stir fry with some homemade hummus with some yummy kind of spicy sauce or something on top. That's sort of my nourishment that I never thought in my whole life that I would say, yes, that's my favorite food. But it really is right now, because it helps me feel good in my body, and it feels satisfying at the same time. So
Yes. Oh, that's delicious. I love stir fry like that. So your book is called Fearless, The Art of Using Anxiety to Your Advantage. And it's going to be released in January of 2019. And it's a few days away from this interview, but right around the time the interview comes out and it actually is live and released, your book should be there.
yay.
So we'll put a link in the show notes of how to get a hold of Kate's book, Fearless, The Art of Using Anxiety to Your Advantage. So would you share a little bit about the book, about what inspired the book, who it serves, that kind of thing, so people can go and buy your book and just really drink in your wisdom?
Ooh, thank you. Well, circling back to the beginning when we talked about the mind, body, spirit sort of paradigm and how that's been such an important thing for both of us. That's been the way that even though I know they're not separate, right? But people need to kind of understand them and recognize how acknowledge what is a mental issue that you're clearing or a physical, even though they're all related, and we know that. So this book ended up being a way that I wanted to share how I've worked with my own path of healing on a mind, body, spirit level, and how I've applied that to my work with women in the therapeutic structure as well as in the business coaching. And so I divide it into those three sections, and I brought in the archetype of the sacred feminine in the sense that I called working with your mind is learning to be the queen, right? Learning to really master your mind is to be that queen who is in charge of her little minions, of her thoughts and beliefs, and really in charge of recognizing what is serving her authority so that she can claim back her self-worth, her sovereignty, and her self-dignity, right? That's a place as women, I feel like we are coming through that oppression and needing to claim that back. And that begins in the mind, right? With how we treat ourselves and how we need to forgive the ways that we've treated ourselves and move forward with, some authority for ourselves. The body, I call it being the heroine of your body, because we have to be willing to be a bit courageous to go connect back with our bodies that we've been split off from, that we've been taught to be split off from, and to negate and to judge and to think that our bodies are not okay. And not only heal that, but then to be able to also go clear whatever places are blocked, that we get to do some healing work and come back through that growth, feeling more courage, more compassion for ourselves, empowered, right? Empowered in this heroine kind of way that we can stand in our body, in our strength as a woman. That's why I have that figure as the cover, because it's a woman who's sort of this heroine, queen, goddess, who's holding a sword, and she's in her power as a woman. Even though she's in a stance as a warrior, she's doing it as a woman. And that was a really important image for me to get, is that I don't see our job as healing through our fears and worries as becoming more masculine, more empowered warriors. It's more feminine than that. So that image was just amazing for me to find, because it really reflects that. And so the heroine work is an acknowledgement that we can start to learn to love ourselves and all those aspects that we've kind of rejected. And then the third piece of it is working with connecting with our spiritual life, our sense of our own soul, our sense of our divine connection with whatever that is for all of us, right? It's different. Mm-hmm. But to recognize what a resource that is, and that allows us to drop into a deeper level of unfolding our authentic self, right? We start to cultivate that loving kindness. We start to cultivate that courage on a spiritual level to shine our light of who we are. So that's the 3 sections. And the book was inspired really just from my own journey and wanting to share these teachings and these practices from different ancient wisdom schools, right? I've studied with Miguel Ruiz, which is a shamanic work called the Toltec teachings. He wrote the book, The Four Agreements, that many people know. And I studied with him for many years, and I gleaned a lot of really good things there. And there was places that were limited for me as well. And then I studied a lot into Kundalini yoga and became a teacher, and my own spiritual path with different schools, and bringing all of that forward in myself and in my work with other women. I felt like, gosh, I want to provide these simple steps that people can start to take to do this inner self-mastery work. So that's why I ended up writing the book. What was surprising to me is that the anxiety piece was leading. And even though I know I've suffered with anxiety, when I was writing the book, I recognized how I had sort of compartmentalized, okay, I had anxiety with this situation, this partner, this life change. But then I suddenly was seeing the whole scope, and I thought, oh my Lord, I have had fear about being safe in this world since I was born. And I have struggled with that story of how do I be my sensitive, beautiful self in a authentic way in this world. And that's been my journey. So it was very moving for me to realize that anxiety has both that side that grows us and has that side that it can really impede us. And being able to speak to that for women, to help them recognize that, and to know that there are things they can start to do to make a difference in how they relate to themselves and their anxiety and their lives, was just felt so amazing. And it really kind of came to me as a download. I was very fortunate because I wasn't sure at all how I was going to do that. But once I saw the mind, body, spirit, it just all laid out. And I went, okay, here we go. Let's do this. And it just was quite blessed. It wasn't real. It didn't feel like I made that happen. It kind of just happened.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my God. I cannot wait to read it now even more, even more, because I think, getting goosebumps too, again. So I hear universal truths in all of this, and adding your personal story and your personal understanding along with your education and your experience and all of that, I think speaks to a universal understanding that as things are growing and shifting in this time and culture where, things are wonderful and exciting and scary at the same time. And is it safe to be here really for our souls, and all of those things for sensitive people and empaths and all, whatever name people want to put on it. And I think that's a very big universal message. And I'll bet it's interesting because when you were I've seen the cover of the book, that you've posted on social media, and I love it. And now I love it more hearing the story, of course. And I thought, well, when you're talking, I'm like, I know a bunch of men that could use the same idea, because when we're disconnected and we're only in our head, we're leaving the whole safe, wise, loving, curious, feminine energy out of us, whether we're male or female by body. So it makes it even bigger of a universal issue, is from what I'm hearing, and so I cannot wait for this book to hit the market, and I will certainly be telling people about it and make sure I have the link so I can put it in our show notes. That'd be great.
Dianne.
So if people wanted to work with you, what would they do to contact you, and what kind of people do you like to help and work with, so that, if somebody's hearing this interview and really loving what you're having to say, even half as much as I am, they may say, hey, I want to talk to Kate, and I maybe want to learn more about her or work with her. What would be the best way to do that? How would they contact you? And also, what kind of people do you wish to work with?
Well, the easiest way to get a hold of me, Dianne, is at my website, which is www.katedow.com. So katedow.com. And from there, you can be checking out my book, how it's coming. You can contact me, and we can jump on the phone and do a brief meet and greet call, or we can do a discovery call. I would say at this point, the people that I'm really focused on helping the most are women who are looking at taking their businesses to the next level and figuring out how are they going to do that in a sustainable, fulfilling way. Because we all know how much it takes to get our business up and running, and then to continue expanding it in a way that's thoughtful and aligned and sustainable. So that's where the self-mastery work comes in. I do work with some women who are just starting, and I have different programs that I'm actually working on implementing and offering. So I do a lot of online work that is going to be that is available, as well as, one-to-one packages. However, I find people work and grow faster when they're in groups. So I do like to do groups. So yeah, you can contact me and find out what's happening there, and be sure to ask me any questions that you have, because my work is growing quickly and expanding in lots of different ways so that I can be of service to women.
Oh, that's amazing. So that's your website is katedow.com, and I will put that link in the show notes. And so when you contact Kate, let her know that you heard her interview here on the Someone Gets Me podcast, so that she will know where in the world her amazing message has been heard. So our final question is there anything that you would like to share with our listeners that maybe I didn't ask you about, or something that is on your heart that you would like people to know about as your last words on the show?
I would say don't ever underestimate your own personal work and how it can greatly change your life and your business. I had a gal who ended up being in touch with me, and she had some personal reasons why she wasn't moving forward in her life that had been lifelong fears of being accepted and loved if she revealed this part of her. And through connecting with me, she had a lot of fear come up around moving through that. And yet she took my book, which at that point was just the PDF, and she really applied it. She gave herself permission, because I called out her fear of really taking responsibility for her life. And she started to really dig in and give herself permission to learn some new things, to apply some new things from the book. And she's like my greatest fan. She's like my greatest fan, because she's like, I don't even know how I found Kate, but I did this online challenge, and then I started reading her book, and then she started to do some work with me, and she has literally transformed her life from the inside out by being willing to embrace this fear that has blocked her from fully loving herself and letting herself be loved for her authentic self. And it's just empowered her relationships and her business and everything. So it's always astonishing to me, but it's really true that we all have the capacity for this transformation. And it's often that we just need that support to do it.
Oh, that's beautiful. And so I know you've enjoyed this interview with Kate as much as I have. And so remember that you are a rock star. Keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, and know that with every breath you take, you're the best idea God ever had. Have a great time, and until the next show, remember, keep smiling and share your awesomeness everywhere.
Thanks for tuning in to Someone Gets Me. To find out more, please visit Dianne's website at MissDianneAllen.com. That's MissDianneAllen.com. Be sure to take a second and subscribe to the show, and share with anyone that you think may benefit. Until next time, remember, the world needs your special gift. So let your light shine.